Council is reconvened. Tonight we have one public hearing. In accordance with Council Rule 4.2, each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. If a speaker does not use his or her entire 3 minutes, the speaker may not yield his or her remaining time to another speaker, nor may any speaker attempt to use another speaker's remaining time. Speakers should begin their remarks by telling the Council their names and cities of residence, and if they feel comfortable doing so, their home addresses. If you are here to answer questions only when your name is called, come to the podium, state your name, and note that you are available for questions of Council. On the presentation monitors on the wall, you will see your time counting down. Speakers must stay on the topic of this hearing and must direct their comments to the Council as a whole. Please refrain from profane or obscene speech. Direct your comments to Council as a whole and refrain from any personal or individual attacks. Councilman Herndon, will you please put Council Bill 641 on the floor?
Yes, Mr. President, I move that Council Bill 641 be placed upon final consideration and do pass.
It has been moved. Can I get a second? It has been moved and seconded. And we're going to start with Councilwoman Black. You have a technical amendment, so your motion to amend.
I move that Council Bill 18-0641 be amended in the following particulars. On page 4, line 12, after rivers, insert canals. On page 5, line 7, after rivers, insert canals. And on page 6, line 19, after rivers, insert canals.
Thank you, Councilwoman Black. Comments by members of Council? Councilwoman Black?
Thank you. This is a technical amendment specifying that canals are included in the intended use of the special revenue monies funded by the additional sales and use taxes.
Are there any other comments? All right. Seeing none, Madam Secretary, can we do roll call on the amendment?
Black.
Aye.
Brooks. Espinosa.
Aye.
Flynn.
Aye.
Gilmore.
Aye.
Herndon.
Aye.
Cashman.
Aye.
Kenich.
Aye.
Lopez.
Aye.
New.
Aye.
Ortega.
Aye.
Sussman.
Aye.
Mr. President,
Aye. Madam Secretary, please close the voting and announce the results.
12 ayes.
12 ayes. Council Bill 641 has been amended. The 1-hour courtesy public hearing for Council Bill 641 is open. May we have the overview from our very own Zach.
Good evening, President Clark, members of Council. My name is Zach Rothmeyer. I'm a legislative analyst for City Council. We'll give you a very brief overview on Council Bill 641. If you have questions, feel free to answer those as well. This bill essentially does three things. The first thing the bill does is poses the question to the voters of the City and County of Denver November 6 to approve a 0.25% sales and use tax. This tax will be solely dedicated towards parks and open space. None of the provisions of this bill will take effect unless that tax is approved by the voters. The additional tax will result in approximately $46 million in additional funds each year. The next thing the bill does is creates a special revenue fund. This fund will be exclusively used for revenue derived by this additional tax and will be administered by the manager of Parks and Recreation. No more than 5% of this fund could be used annually for the administration of this fund. The fund also includes a maintenance of effort provision to ensure that the funding will be spent on the approved uses. The manager of Parks and Recreation must submit an annual report on the expenditures to Council, the Mayor, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and the Auditor. The last thing the manager also must submit a 5-year plan of the expenditures starting within the first year of adoption. The last thing this bill accomplishes is to prescribe what the fund may be used for. The acceptable uses of the fund are acquiring additional land for parks, open spaces, and trails, developing, improving, and maintaining new and existing parks, including Denver's mountain parks, open spaces, and trails, restoring and protecting waterways, rivers, canals, and streams, purchasing, planting, and carrying of trees, and operating and maintaining any additional acquisitions and capital improvements to the city's parks, mountain parks, and open space. And with that, I'm happy to field any questions on this bill.
Thank you very much. Tonight we do have 25 individuals sign up to speak, and it is a courtesy hearing, so we only have an hour. So I would ask that if your comments can be shorter than 3 minutes to make sure that we can get through everybody, or as many as possible, please do. If you're sitting in this first seat up here, I'm going to ask if you could please move so that we can get speakers lined up and get through as quickly as possible. I will call up the first 5 speakers, and I do apologize if I mispronounce your name. If I call you up, please make your way to this now empty first bench, and as soon as I call your name, there will be a slight delay, but then your time will start as you step up to the podium. So our first 5 speakers are Harriet Lemaire, Jonathan Capelli, Jesse Paris, Chairman Sekou, and Hillary Portel. If you 5 could come up to the front, and Harriet Lemaire, you are up first. The podium is yours. Go ahead.
Want me to go ahead? Okay. Time's of the essence. My name's Harriet Lemaire, and I'm the director of the Highline Canal Conservancy. And I'm here to, first I want to introduce Alana Weber and Brianna Winters from our staff. I'm here because of the young people. I'm not going to be around if you see this money invested in the community. I may not be here to see that, but you guys are leaders, and you have opportunities sometimes to reach your hand well into the future, and this is one of those opportunities, and I think it's so exciting. The Highline Canal moves through, as you know, 11 different governmental jurisdictions. I wanted to mention that it travels through 4 counties, and Denver is the only county that doesn't have an open space tax, a dedicated fund. And we're challenged as we think about the long-term future planning for the canal, what that means for Denver. So the minute I heard about this, I thought this is true leadership. This is an opportunity not just for the Highline Canal, it's an opportunity for your existing parks, but to find new inches, new miles, new acreage, find old ditches, find old infrastructure, intertwine nature throughout this community as richly as we can for the benefit of all the citizens in this community. There are 17.6 miles in Denver and over 100,000 people roughly living in the adjoining neighborhoods, and you know which neighborhoods there are. Of that population, that's 13% of the Denver population. 26% of those people are Latino that live along the Highline Canal, 19% are African American, 4% are Asian, and 4% represent one or more races. So more than 54% of those people living that close to the Highline Canal are not white. So let's claim these inches, let's claim these parks, the adjacent old infrastructures, old ditches, whatever you can find. Let's get this on the ballot, let our voters vote for it, and embrace this community as one of the richest, greenest communities for all people forever. Thanks.
Thank you. Jonathan Capelli.
Thank you, council members, for taking the time to listen to our comments today, for your engagement with me and others over the weekend to discuss this, and particular thanks to you, Council President Jolan, because of your obvious passion about green space and open space and parks and recreation, as evidenced by this bill or ordinance. I'm not speaking on behalf of NDC today, but as a resident of District 10 and also as a board member of All in Denver. In many ways, we support much of what this measure is trying to accomplish and fully agree about the importance of everyone, including especially children, having access to more open space. On a personal note, parks and open space are a very serious issue for me because of my grandmother's passion for them. This is a woman who lived in a pretty low-income area in North Philadelphia, and despite really sort of difficult circumstances, in all of her free time, always took kids in the neighborhood out to the Pocono Mountains and to parks that were even in that city that the kids weren't even aware were in their own city. Before there were any studies or anything supporting, the connection between parks and childhood development, intuitively she knew that it was really important to make sure that everyone had access to this. We're not quite in a park deficit as North Philly was in the 80s, but still a big issue. However, there are some issues with this ordinance that really affect our ability to fully throw our weight behind this. We agree that no person or child should be barred from having access to plentiful, high-quality parks. But if we're really about providing access to everyone, then we have to critically examine whom our investments are going to serve. Are we building a green city for everyone, or just a green city for the select class that will be able to afford to live here in the future? Health, transportation, education, and housing are not and should not be treated as competing priorities, but they certainly have better outcomes when they're coordinated together. So to ensure that happens, we need to consider a couple of caveats to this ordinance, I believe. One, or we believe with All in Denver, one is a lower tax rate, potentially, and a sunrise, which leaves room for investment in other priorities. Number two is working in a responsive community investment plan that's responsive to the individual economic situations of different neighborhoods in the city. And three, a comprehensive anti-displacement strategy that's coordinated with OED's anti-displacement strategy to make sure that the unintended effects that new parks will have to mitigate the unintended effects that new parks will have on our already accelerating and skyrocketing land values. It's also important to note that there's a slight inconsistency inherent in choosing to not modestly increase sales tax to raise funds for low-income programs because it's deemed regressive, but then increasing that tax anyway to pay for something that doesn't yet have socioeconomic equity worked into it. If we work in the aforementioned bullets, I believe we'll be able to address that issue and move forward in a responsible way.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Next up, Jesse Paris.
Jesse Paris, your next city council at large. Black Star Action Movement for Self-Defense, Denver Homicide Loud. We are against this sales tax increase. Denver currently has the urban camping ban. So how is this going to benefit us if we can't even occupy these parks or these trails or these spaces? It seems really hypocritical that you want to increase taxes on parks and recs, but yet there is no tax for affordable housing, or as we love to say, attainable housing in the city of Denver. So yeah, Denver Homicide Loud, Black Star Action Movement, we are against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Chairman Sekou.
Yes. Excuse me. Chairman Sekou, founder, organizer of Black Star Action Movement for Self-Defense, and also the next mayor of 2019 City County in Denver. We stand opposed to this increase in tax, which is no more than an increase in taxes on the poor who can't afford another penny being spent on amenities that are not for us. We need jobs. We need housing. We need apprenticeship programs for the carpenters unions and other unions so that we can come up and have the opportunity of participating in the success of this city that the mayor conveniently ignores. So why would we pay for this? We work hard for our money, and we refuse to be co-conspirator to our own whooping by paying for it. Absolutely not. Now to consider this, as a body, you gotta be kidding me. Out of all the priorities and things that needs to be done and time, you are voting for a sales increase tax, excise tax for the squirrels to have a home that we ain't got, for the ducks to take a shit where we ain't got no place to shit at?
Mr. Sekou, please watch your language.
Oh, excuse me. A laboratory, what do you call that? What do you call that thing? The little box that you use it?
And
Oh, a porta potty. We ain't got a porta potty to do what we need to do, nor a pot to throw in it. But this is for the ducks. This is for the squirrels. You got to be kidding me. What that says as a body is that you have no respect for the poor whatsoever. Whatsoever. Because where's our tax? And how come it ain't on the agenda before all of this mess? Come on, y'all, you gotta help me. It takes teamwork to make the dream work, and you don't do that by excluding the masses of the people and participating in the success of their lives. And I've been down here for 12 years, saying the same thing over and 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 over, and you don't get it. You don't get it. So why should we still come down here? Why? Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm expending every possible avenue to give you every opportunity to do the right thing for the right reason. Because this is it for me. This is it. This is it. After this,
Mr. Sekou, your
there'll
time
be
is
no
up.
more talking.
Your time is up. Next up, Hillary Portel, and while Hillary comes up, I would invite Wade Shelton, Brad Siegel, David Richter, Mark Thompson, and Ann Elizabeth to work your way up to the front pew. You're the next five. Go ahead.
I'm Hillary Portel. I live at 1124 South Milwaukee Street, and I'm on the board of All in Denver. Thank you, Councilman Clark, for your lifetime commitment to parks and recreation in our community and for meeting with us to discuss our concerns about this proposal. Overall, we support continued investment in the park system. Parks are a critical part of Denver's quality of life and health, and it's clear to us that they haven't kept up with our city's growth. What troubles us is the size and scale of this tax during an unprecedented time in our city. At a time of widening income inequality, unrelenting displacement, and decreasing federal funding for social services, is this proposal the best response? Are you going to ask Denver voters to approve the highest sales tax increase in recent memory, with no plan for how funds will be spent and no ability to decide in the future if we want to continue taxing ourselves for this? Have unintended consequences been planned for? Shouldn't we coordinate our public investments to enhance our community while reducing the top two expenses for most households, housing and transportation? After all, these are your priorities for 2018 and 2019, published and released to the public just 6 months ago. The thing is, nobody gets everything they want. Advocates go for it. We have many competing priorities. We all go for as much as we can get, and after a rigorous public process, we do the best with what we can. We make the most of what we're able to get. We should leave room in Denver for taxes to support future needs. And those needs are now. The question should be, how will Denver be a city where everyone matters during the Trump administration? Please reduce this tax, add a sunset mechanism, and provide a plan for how investments will be aligned with the mayor's new neighborhood equity strategy announced today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Wade Shelton.
Thank you, President Clark, members of City Council. My name is Wade Shelton, and I'm here to speak on behalf of the Trust for Public Lands Denver-based Colorado program and as a Denver resident. I wish to offer a strong endorsement of the bill to offer Denver voters the opportunity to create a dedicated source of funds for the city's parks, trails, and open space. The parks, trails, and open space, the trails and recreation opportunities in Denver improve our quality of life and are an important investment in our future. And from Main Street to mountaintops, Denver boasts a diverse park system, including 6,000 acres of urban parkland, 244 city parks, 28 recreation centers, and 14,000 acres of land in Denver mountain parks. And over the past 11 years, I've had the privilege, as have many of my colleagues at the Trust for Public Land, of working with many of you and many communities around Denver to help complete land acquisitions to create new parks and activate and create and redesign old ones. Whether it's Cuatro Vientos Park in Denver's Westwood neighborhood, New Freedom Park, a park for refugee families and at-need populations in East Denver, River North Park in Denver's Rhino neighborhood, or the Montbello Open Space Park in Montbello. We've been part of a lot of great projects that are ensuring all Denver residents, regardless of their income, what neighborhood they live in, or what walk of life they come from, have the same access to the outdoors. But sadly, many of those projects would be impossible to complete today. Given the growth of the real estate market in Denver, we're looking at $200 a square foot for downtown real estate. And despite the best philanthropic efforts of the Trust for Public Land, Great Outdoors Colorado, and the City and County of Denver, your great Parks Department cannot meet the needs of our community. The longer we wait to restore and maintain our parks, trail, and open space, the more it will cost us in the long run. By making investments today, we can avoid more costly problems in the future and leverage millions of dollars in matching funds. Every Front Range county but Denver has local dedicated funds for parks, trails, and natural areas, and we're missing out. Our parks and trails provide affordable recreation close to home for everyone, and I'm fortunate enough that I get to experience going to Denver City Park every day because I live close to it. But everyone in this room, every citizen in this city deserves to have those same opportunities. And that will help create the quality of life that lifts up everyone, and not just those of us who are lucky enough to live near a wash park or a city park. By referring this funding measure, Denver voters will have the opportunity to approve and maintain our parks, trails, and natural areas and quality of life now and for generations to come. And I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Brad Siegel.
My name is Brad Siegel. I reside on Detroit Street in Congress Park. Chairman Clark, congratulations. Glad your mother was here earlier. She's a school teacher. She actually impacted my own son and gave him a love for creative writing. She does really good work. Tonight, I'm speaking as a co-founder of All in Denver. We are a nonprofit advocacy organization that believes an equitable city is where all people have the opportunity to prosper and thrive. Overall, we support continued investment in the city's park system. We view parks as an important component of a thriving and equitable city. However, as have been voiced by prior speakers from our board, we do have concerns with the size and the scope of the initiative that Council is getting ready to vote on tonight. We would be more supportive of this proposal if it had three characteristics. One, if it was smaller, a smaller tax, lower tax, and also had a sunset mechanism, as Hillary and Jonathan mentioned, that voters could look at this again in 5 or 10 years and see if it's something they want to continue. Two, it needs to be guided by a community-based plan that will make sure that there's investment in our neglected neighborhoods in the city, but also make sure there are anti-displacement measures in place so that we're not accelerating property values with the best of intentions and displacing more people over time. Thirdly, we also want to see how this aligns with the top priorities of this council. This council was very clear back in January that affordable housing and transportation are the top two priorities for Denver moving forward. We don't see how that connection has been made in this proposal. One other concern we have is opportunity cost. This is an aggressive tax proposal. This would be the largest sales tax initiated by Denver City Council in modern memory. It joins an already crowded ballot with transportation, scholarship, and mental health initiatives as well. If all of these initiatives are passed, or some of these initiatives are passed, we are concerned, where do we go 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now when we have a whole new series of challenges and we need revenue and we've tapped out the community's appetite to support it? So in conclusion, we do urge restraint and accountability if you decide to move the initiative forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, David Richter.
Mr. President, Council, my name is David Richter. I live at 252 Pennsylvania. I'm Councilman Clark's representative on the Denver Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The bill you're
Could you get a little closer to the microphone? We can't hear you, so just right into the microphone.
Better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. Start off?
No, just keep going.
Okay. So the bill you're considering has been drafted, I think, with more than just an appreciation for the challenges to maintain the existing park system, but also in recognition that because of the growth our city is experiencing and will continue to experience, the concept of a park, of a city in a park, is becoming kind of wishful thinking. Does Denver need more parks? Well, you've heard the park score rankings from the Trust for Public Lands. I know you've seen the outdoor downtown master plan. Does Denver need more services? Look at our deferred maintenance backlog. Look at the stress on our parks and our pools, our fields, our rec centers, our courts. Let's not even wade into dog parks, or Scott will get up and probably leave the room. Try to find a ranger when you really need one. Consider the budget impact of threats like the emerald ash borer, unforeseen costs like that, in terms of protecting our tree canopy, restoring our river and our streams. And I say all this despite really the excellent work I think that DPR continues to do, in addition, of course, the efforts, the kind of irreplaceable accomplishments of organizations like the Mountain Park Foundation, the Park People, Greenway Foundation, just to name a few. Well, every year PRAB sends a white paper to DPR's guidance for planning, prioritization, and spending. And this year, under the Revenue Goals and Spending Authority section of the paper we sent to DPR, I quote, "Additionally, and with emphasis, PRAB again advocates for a dedicated and sustainable funding source for new land acquisition." Council, I know you're engaged in game plan, blueprint, as we plan the future of our city. I think this bill gives you the opportunity to put some teeth in it, and I support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Mark Thompson.
Thank you, President Clark, and congratulations. Members of council, thank you for the brief moment. I'm not going to speak in favor or against this tax. I don't know a lot about it, but hey, I and my family enjoy parks and open space. The members of our organization enjoy the parks of our city. Another thing that we enjoy is opportunities for the youth of our communities. And it's been a year now. July of 2017, we came to the City Council. We spoke with individuals regarding requiring apprenticeship
Mr. Thompson, our rules do require you to stay on topic.
On this, because again, you are asking for an increase to a sales tax and a use tax, and you're talking about building again with it. And I'm asking the City Council, and I'm asking the Mayor of Denver to tie requirements of apprenticeship participation in those projects. We have failed the youth of our communities. We continue to fail because over and over again, we got $5 billion worth of work contracted in this city. And we are failing the youth and the citizens of our community.
Thank you. Next up is Ann Elizabeth, and I will invite the next 5 speakers to come to the front. Scott Robson, Darrell Watson, Ian Tafoya, Bill Carl, and Bart Berger. And Ann Elizabeth, you're up.
Members of the council, I am here to strongly support this tax. Some of my comments will be responsive to other folks, and I'll ask you to connect the dots. I'm at East 50th Avenue and North Washington Street in Globeville. The reason that I support this is because I think there is a maintenance deficit we've recently experienced in Argo Park over there, in an effort to get the water jets fixed, and discovered that despite the sincere willingness and availability of folks in the park system to deploy people to do this, there are only 2 maintenance folks available to execute the needed repairs. Regarding, and I think that what we have here, as I understand the potential impact of the use of this money, it can, through some of the capital expenditures, create some improvements. Argo Park certainly can use a bathroom. I've read the very entertaining bathroom master plan for the parks, and it's a well-done document, and I think we can be talking more on that level. I think that the 2 obstacles that we have found toward the bathrooms and a drinking fountain, but mainly the bathrooms in Argo, have been regarding vandalism and the expense for putting in the sewer system, and I think there's ways we can work with this. The favorable way that day use, and I agree the camping ban would be great to revisit, but day use benefits intergenerational homeless. Within Globeville, as an example, we have intergenerational homeless. Many times families are having reunions during the day at the park, even in the evening. This is how they stay in touch. Meet me at the park. We have this program with the City of Denver that is hiring homeless on jobs and eventually leading to more permanent jobs. We certainly are wanting to have, when I say we, the miscellaneous numerous conversations I've had with people in my own neighborhood. I don't represent anybody. But anyway, we certainly can look at employing homeless in the parks through relationships with those that are actually our permanent homeless folks or our consistent homeless folks. Also, I think that we can look at the apprenticeships programs as an affiliated part of this. I would support those sensitivities and those priorities. I don't want this to be an either-or with this level of taxation. Our parks do have deficits, and I would ask you to work very closely with parks, have a community accountability relative to our optimum master planning over time to help us enrich the parks, to recognize that part of the sanity of a city under extreme stress with changes and building environments needs park systems that are optimized both in the comfort, the utilitarian comforts, meaning bathrooms, and we want to encourage our Elyria and Swansea neighbors to be coming over to our beautiful developing network of parks in Globeville over the next 7 years to help with the stress reduction and the revitalization of daily energies, and it would certainly be wonderful to have this filling out the budget to do that.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Robson.
Good evening, Council. Scott Robson. I'm a District 10 resident in Congress Park. Thank you for the time on this issue tonight. I'm here to speak in support of this initiative. I serve as the Executive Director of the Civic Center Conservancy, a nonprofit downtown here, and also had the privilege over a number of years to serve as the Director of Denver Parks under Mayor Hickenlooper's administration. So I have seen firsthand the difficulties that this city has without a lack of funding source like is being proposed here tonight to fund the acquisitions and the over $100 million in park maintenance backlog that is necessary for a world-class city like us to move forward. I think this bill represents a few things. First of all, I think this helps solve an equity issue. The acquisitions that will occur from this funding source on an annual basis will more than likely occur primarily in underserved neighborhoods, and that is where we need to invest our money across this city for the quality of life of our family and children in our most underserved neighborhoods. It also is just a general quality of life answer that we're trying to solve here. We as a city and residents have intentionally helped increase density and growth of this city over time. This bill helps offset that through new park acquisitions, through the breadth and depth of new parks that we will bring to the city. It helps offset that density and growth that some of us are feeling a pinch around. And last of all, I think it represents a fair initiative that is at the right level where we stand today in the 0.25 sales tax. It represents a fair level to both citizens and, frankly, to those visitors that come to our city, the majority of which pay sales tax. The majority of residents are not taking the burden of sales tax. It is those residents that visit us, and that's a great thing for those of us that live in the city. So I want to let you know that our board of directors with the Civic Center Park Conservancy have voted unanimously in favor of this. That's not something that we take lightly, but we would like to see this move forward. It's long overdue. We've been talking about this in this city for over a decade, and as a world-class city, it's time. It's time that we begin to fund our park system in a whole nother way and get to a level that this city deserves, our families, our residents, and beyond. So thank you for the time tonight.
Thank you. Darrell Watson.
Good evening, members of council and community members. My name is Darrell Watson. I live at 26 in Lafayette in the beautiful Whittier neighborhood. I am the co-chair of the Denver Game Plan, the 15-year master plan for Denver Mountain Parks, Denver Parks and Recreation Centers. On behalf of the other co-chair, the amazing Florence Navarro, who's not able to be here tonight, we're here to speak in favor of this, this bill. The primary opposition that we've heard, the focus has been on the tax rate, whether this bill will target neglected neighborhoods and communities, and whether it aligns with the city's identified higher priorities. I'll hit on each of these within my brief remarks. The 0.25% tax increase places Denver competitively still below at a total tax rate of 3.9% compared to our current tax rate of 3.65%, which is lower than most of our neighboring counties and communities. The game plan process, of which I've been involved in over the last 18 months, from its first meeting through now the final meetings of this process, every community outreach, every discussion we've had with community members, they have resoundingly stated that they wanted a dedicated funding source for parks. I've been involved in the parks process for well over 20 years as one of the former presidents of the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and within that 20-year period, each time, each community outreach and process, folks have communicated their desire and interest in identifying a dedicated source for parks. Denver and our funding for parks, we're ranked now 26th. We often call ourselves a city within a park, and slowly but surely that is not the case. This plan will align to the city's identified higher priorities of investing in mobility, and will have a focus on revitalizing parks in most neglected neighborhoods in the city. I live in a Whittier neighborhood. We have 5 pocket parks. When you exclude Fuller Park, the 4 other pocket parks that we have in Whittier have been not kept up. There are needles, there are broken bottles. The poor children in my neighborhood deserve parks that they can play in, that they can have birthday parties in, that they can enjoy living in Whittier. Every advertisement about the city of Denver, every rationale for why Denver is a great city is built on this city being a city in a park. Displacement and affordable housing are priorities of council. So is reducing non-permeable surfaces, increasing air quality and quality of life. This plan will get us to the latter without changing council's and the mayor's office focus on reducing displacement and increasing affordable housing. In a great city and a forward-looking city, they all can be done. We are tired of being placed in the back of the line. Bringing it to the people for a vote, finally, is something that this council is allowing, and we ask you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Tafoya.
Hello, my name is Ian Thomas Tafoya. I'm a resident of Lama Lincoln Park in District 3. I want to say congratulations, Joel, and I had a chance to sit on the Parks Board with you. It makes me feel amazing to know that we have a parks advocate leading City Council, and I think it's going to be reflected in the choices we make under your leadership. I am here in support. Today, I was at the State of the City address, and I heard a lot about the City Beautiful movement 100 years ago. Well, today we have another opportunity to seize opportunity to grow our park system. It provides a whole host of benefits, including public health. I have been a tireless advocate for public health, and I believe this is an opportunity to build public restrooms and that's related to the alcohol policy that we're discussing currently. I think it's an opportunity to bring drinking fountains. I was a teacher. I believe children deserve access to water fountains in their parks. I think it's a chance for us to restore and protect our history in our water fountains. You know, most people don't know, but it's the 100th anniversary of the Greek fountain in City Park. I think there's an opportunity to protect those amenities. I think it's a chance to modernize our facilities. The mayor announced he's ready for 100% renewable energy. Solar panels on buildings, I think, probably fit into this. I think we've had a conversation around I-70 and air quality. Perhaps it's an opportunity to use this money to improve air quality in the recreation centers. You know, I also want to take a chance and address this equity conversation. You know, I've been an advocate for public transit to Red Rocks. I think this ties into improving the amenities, and if we can get the transit there, we can access it. You know, the Arsenal now has transit, and we created a little park in between the sliver of land and the public transit to provide that for people. You know, I want to say this is an opportunity to buy land. You know, we're not always going to have that opportunity to buy land. Park Hill Golf Course is one. Loretta Heights is one. You know, a few years ago, there was a piece of property here. Saco Devore, who was part of the City Beautiful movement, imagined an entire civic plaza that went from the Platte River all the way to the Capitol. We missed that opportunity. We don't have to miss that opportunity in the future. You know, we could be like Green Gables and Lakewood, where they missed their opportunity to protect a park, and instead they haven't. You know, I want to touch on trees and parkways. Parkways and trails, by the way, are transportation. It's not all just about cars. There are people who get equitable transit on a bus. You know, I do think it's a great leveler for the community. Everybody goes and they hang out in the parks. I do think it is connected to housing and density. As we increase density, we need parks. I am in support of impact fees. And I'm glad that you ensured we're doubling down. You made sure that this isn't money that's going to be taken away from parks in the first place. You know, lastly, I guess I want to talk about some of the concerns. I mean, some of the concerns I've heard are about housing and transportation, which I talked about. But some of the other ones relate to just oversight, and I believe under your leadership, there'll be great oversight. You know, with Denver Interneighborhood Cooperation, they've talked about how they like to see park oversight be vested more in the parks. I hope this doesn't become just a fund that you guys are ambivalent to. I'm pretty sure you'll be involved in, and so that's why I'm in support today.
Thank you. Next, Bill Carl.
Bill Carl, and I actually get to live in a Denver park up on top of Lookout Mountain where Buffalo Bill's buried. I'm the concession there. My family has been there since 1956. We've also run the trading post at Red Rocks and currently run the lodge at Echo Lake on Mount Evans. Tourism works. And I'm also a member of the Denver Mountain Parks Foundation under Bart Berger. One of the things that was addressed was training youth in the trades. And one of the things Bart's been working on is the HistoriCorps project there at the CCC camp at Mount Morrison. And every board meeting we have, that's mentioned, that we would like to develop more youth involvement with restoration of these parks. I'll give you two things I wanted to say. One is with the parks, how busy they're getting. I've been there all my life. At Red Rocks, we used to do about 40 to 45 shows a year. It's well over 120 now. On Mount Evans, we used to kind of be by ourselves up there at Echo Lake. It was kind of lonely. Now, on the weekends, they're lining up from the Bergen Park side and the Idaho Springs side, and you can't even get across the street. The power of social media. It's the TripAdvisor reviews, it's the Facebooking at Red Rocks. This is the greatest place I've ever been. These things are going to keep going, and Denver has the best stuff. It was laid out at the beginning that Denver had the best properties west of town in the mountains, and there's parks and land that haven't even been developed yet, and it's going to take some money, and there's never enough of it, of course, but it's going to take some money, and the people are coming, and they're here. This morning, just an example of how tourism works, my first sale today was $89 at Buffalo Bill, a bunch of T-shirts. The city gets $8.90 of that. They were here for the Imagine Dragon concert at Red Rocks, which is sold out tonight. It's just this effect of a good place attracting more and more people. We all know what I-70 is like on the weekends. Genesee Park is coming. It's going to be amazing. The Buffalo are going to have a lot of company, and it's going to take some money to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Bart Berger. And then I'll invite the next 5 to come up. Jim Peterson, Leslie Twardowski, Jeff Shoemaker, Erica Walker, and Fabi Hilliard. Go ahead.
Thank you, President Clark. That has a ring to it. I'm Bart Berger, co-chairman of the Denver Mountain Parks Foundation. And, a wise man once said that the time to plant trees is 20 years ago. In the early days of the 20th century, Denver's leaders understood the importance of parks for the quality of life in Denver. Their dedication to creating our park system is legendary. Moreover, their understanding that one of Denver's unique characteristics is its nearness to the cool air and open spaces of the Front Range foothills. In typical fashion, Denver took the remarkable step to build roads and parks outside of its own boundaries to provide for her citizens something no other city in America could. They created this with a voter-approved, dedicated funding source. And the result was a 14,000-acre necklace of parks from Lookout Mountain to Daniels Park, from Red Rocks to Mount Evans, that are unparalleled in their popularity, even if people don't know much about them. The dedicated funding ceased in 1955, and only until recently began a long, slow deterioration. Out of sight became out of mind. But with the city, we are beginning to turn that around and creating a dedicated funding source again for the parks, and in particular the Denver Mountain Parks, once again will honor the legacy that we have been given. In the 21st century, we have the opportunity to provide a quality of life and a spectrum of park amenities that, quite frankly, people come here expecting. We dream of a great city, and a great city is equal to the sum of its parks. Denver has a reputation for leadership, creating a dependable, dedicated funding source for Denver's parks. Most certainly the mountain parks is part of that. And this small tax will enable us to do what our citizens already are expecting that we are already doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Jim Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President and Council. I'm Jim Peterson of Lakewood. On behalf of the Trust for Public Lands Denver-based Colorado program, I wish to offer a strong endorsement of the bill before you today. The Trust for Public Land is a national organization whose mission is to create parks and protect land for people to ensure healthy, livable communities for generations to come. We have a national vision that every resident will live within a 10-minute walk of a quality park. Parks are essential city infrastructure. They are central to our quality of life. I'd like to give you 6 reasons why Council should approve this measure and give Denver residents the opportunity to make badly needed investments in Denver's parks, trails, trees, and open spaces. First, community. Parks connect people to their neighborhoods, to their city, and to each other. Parks help build strong communities and give local residents the opportunity to celebrate diversity and community identity and heritage. Second, environment. Parks play a key role in the health of the city's environment. Parks protect natural resources. They help us adapt to a changing climate by providing badly needed shade and absorbing carbon emissions. A robust trail network gets people out of their cars, helping protect our air quality. And by providing kids with close-to-home access to nature, parks help build the next generation of environmental stewards. Third, economy. Parks provide valuable services, including stormwater retention and helping cool surrounding neighborhoods in the heat of summer. Parks boost the city's economy and growth by enhancing our quality of life, which attracts new businesses and workers and helps to retain existing ones. Fourth, health. Parks provide badly needed close-to-home opportunities for exercise and connecting to nature. This boosts physical and mental health and well-being. Further, parks safeguard clean water and mitigate air pollution. Fifth, inspiration. Parks enrich our daily lives with beauty and nature. They showcase public art, reflecting the cultures, heritage, and character of surrounding neighborhoods. And parks provide a respite from the hustle and bustle of a rapidly changing and growing city. Put simply, parks nurture the spirit, which is something we all need in this increasingly busy and overloaded world. And finally, our kids. We need to invest in Denver parks for our kids. Today, the average kid spends 7 minutes outdoors in unstructured play, compared to more than 7 hours on screens. In an age where kids can hold in their hands devices that connect them to the world, and devices that are designed to distract and hold attention, more than ever, we need parks that are close to people's homes and parks that are filled with exciting, interesting, and fun amenities. For all these reasons and more, I urge you to support the bill before you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Leslie Twardowski.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Leslie Twarogowski, and I currently serve as the president of the Denver Recreation Parks and Advisory Board. Councilman Clark, first I want to congratulate you on your new chair. When I first met you as a fellow member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, I knew that you were destined for greatness. So I'm very happy to see you sitting there, but not the least bit surprised. I will be very brief because Mr. Watson touched on most of my points, but a couple things that have come up is the discussion regarding oversight. And one of the parts of this bill is annual revision and oversight by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Equity is one of our most fundamental concerns in the city of Denver, and I think the job that we did for the GO bond, getting funding for Westwood, Paco Sanchez, GES, recreation centers, and funding projects in areas that have been consistently underfunded gives me a lot of hope and confidence that this will absolutely be a great fail-safe going forward for this tax. Finally, I want to thank you for not making the decisions yourself, but for putting this in front of the voters. Because yes, I did hear what Mr. Siegel said. This is going to be a very, very crowded ballot. But there is nothing more democratic than having each voter look at their own household budget, decide what is a priority for them, and decide what they can afford to vote on. So thank you again for sending this to the voters in your consideration.
Thank you. Next up, Jeff Shoemaker.
Jeff Shoemaker, proud resident of the Wellshire neighborhood. President Pro Tem Gilmore, congratulations. President Clark, MSH, members of Denver City Council. It is a true honor to stand before you this fine evening, this historical, significant evening, a night I've been waiting for over 10 years, and the time has finally come. 35 years ago, Federico Pena was inaugurated as mayor of Denver on the promise of imagining a great city. And 3.5 decades later, it is my belief that Denver is indeed on the verge of becoming a great city, but only if we do a greater job of investing in our parks, be they urban or mountain, or investing in our waterways, be they the South Platte, the Highland Canal, Cherry Creek, or its other tributaries. These priceless natural resources are at a crisis, members. You know this. You've got the numbers I put before you. $400 million of immediate needs right now, today, just to get our park systems and our waterways up to today's standards. And that's not speaking about 5 years or 10 years or 20 years from now. And that's not factoring in the thousands and thousands of people that are coming into this city every single year in great part because of our parks and our waterways. And you've heard that we are indeed, sadly, the only county in the metro area that does not have a dedicated source of funding for our parks and our waterways. But tonight, this night, you can change that. You can move this measure forward to allow the voters of Denver to decide if they want to take the passion they have for our parks and waterways and back it with their wallets. And it is my humble opinion that if you give the voters the chance, they will respond strongly and overwhelmingly with a yes vote. If you choose to move this measure forward tonight, I promise you 2 things this very evening. Number 1, I will continue to work tirelessly on this measure over the next 4 months and beyond. And number 2, I will initiate every single one of my requests to any and every voter with whom I come in contact with one word, and that word is please. And so in conclusion, Mr. President and members of City Council, as I ask all of you one final time to move this opportunity forward to our fellow Denver citizens, I do so humbly, I do so personally, with my final word, please. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Next up, Erica Walker.
Hello, my name is Erica Walker, and I'm with the Denver Mountain Parks Foundation. Thank you so much for taking our comments today. I am strongly in favor of giving Denver citizens the opportunity to vote to increase support for the parks. It's interesting to note that this opportunity has historic precedence. In 1912, Denver voters approved a tax that provided dedicated funding to create the Denver Mountain Parks system. For more than 100 years, the Denver Mountain Parks have allowed residents and tourists alike to enjoy some of the most beautiful land in our state. Unfortunately, in the 1950s, this funding slipped away, and as a result, the mountain parks declined significantly. But now we have an opportunity to create another dedicated funding source. I believe that we owe it to future generations to take this step today. More than 100 years ago, Denver displayed visionary leadership in establishing the Denver Mountain Parks. This was 3 years before our national parks were established and more than 50 years before the Colorado State Parks were established. By restoring dedicated funding to our parks now, Denver will be continuing this important legacy of visionary leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Fabi Hilliard, and I'll ask the last 5 speakers to come to the front. Kim Juan Farrell, Brandon Reithheimer, David Howlett, Katie Fritz, and Frank Rowe. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to you tonight. I'm just here to say thank you. There's never a good time to do something like this. I think it's been longer than 10 years we've been working on this, but it is time to take this step and move this forward to the people of Denver to make the decision. I'm a 5th-generation Colorado native. We've been in every park probably in the entire system at some point, and my children and grandchildren continue to enjoy and thrive in these parks. But they're sad and they're tattered and they need our support. So thank you. I'm hoping that you will move this initiative forward, and I appreciate your bravery in doing this at this time and look forward to working with you all on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Kim Yuan Farrell. Sorry about that.
No problem. Good evening, Council. I'm Kim Yuen Farrell. I live at 41st and Federal. I'm the director of the Park People. We are a 49-year-old nonprofit organization that supports Denver's parks, recreation resources, open space, and urban forest. We have raised millions of dollars for Denver's parks and recreation system, capital improvement projects, maintenance projects. Our Denver Digs Trees program has provided more than 50,000 free and affordable trees to Denver residents. We've engaged with many thousands of community foresters, volunteers, residents across our city to make our neighborhoods more livable places. Never in our 49 years has the Park People gotten involved in any political issue like this. But this is an issue that is so critical to the health of our park system, to the health of our city, and to the health of our residents that we felt we needed to bring our voices to the cause. We, and kind of the collective, Denver Parks and Rec, the Park People, other allies of the park system, cannot continue to plug with our fingers the leaks in a sinking ship, as $127 million in deferred maintenance alone grows by an added $39 million every year. We need to take care of our local parks, our open spaces, our trails, our trees, with adequate stewardship and with new investments so that they can continue to take care of us, of our community. As our population increases, as traffic congestion worsens, as air pollution increases, as our paved surfaces expand, and as our cities get hotter. These aren't just nice amenities that we want to have. These are critical elements of green infrastructure that we need in order to keep Denver livable. They are critical for individual health, for social and community health, for environmental health, and for economic health, as so many of our speakers have already spoken to. They impact the everyday experiences of our lives, and every person and every neighborhood in Denver should have access to the benefits provided by these resources. It is an equity issue. It is related to housing and transportation. It is all of that. These are the things that make Denver a great place to live and to work and to play, and we do not have the resources that we need to properly care for them right now. A dedicated funding source for parks and open space has been a discussion that goes back more than a decade in Denver, and action's long overdue. It's backwards that Denver is the only county in the metro area that doesn't have a parks and open space tax. Land is being so rapidly developed, there will never be a time like now to acquire more land for parks and open space. It will only get harder and more impossible, and our communities will suffer. So please place this funding proposal on the ballot so that Denver residents can decide. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Brandon Reitheimer.
Hello, my name is Brandon Reitheimer. Congratulations, President Clark, on being president. I was the proponent for the Denver Green Roof Initiative, and I'm here today to speak in favor of this bill. I believe the voters should be given an opportunity to vote on this issue. Our parks are severely underfunded. Our green space is rapidly disappearing. The cost of land increases every day, and the ash borer is coming, which is something we cannot forget about. This bill, if voters pass in November, would do a huge service for the future of Denver. We're the only metropolitan city in the area to not have an open space or parks tax, and the 0.25% that's proposed would place us in the middle of jurisdictions in surrounding counties. I strongly urge all of you to allow the people of Denver the opportunity to vote on this in the fall. And just to be clear to those who oppose this, this is just a question for the ballot. This isn't set in stone. I believe we should always let the people vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, David Howlett.
President Clark and members of Denver City Council, my name is David Howlett. I'm a Denver resident. I want to thank you tonight for this opportunity to speak this evening on the proposed park funding bill. The park funding bill will provide much needed funding to address the demands of a city experiencing rapid population growth. The need for the additional $46 million in annual funding is important to ensure that Denver is providing amenity for all of its residents. The additional $46 million would help Denver leverage other funding opportunities, including public and private, nonprofit and foundation sources, thus increasing total funding amounts on a yearly basis. Denver's parks, open space, waterways, and related needs have clear public support for increased funding according to recent surveys. The parks funding bill is broad-based and aligns with the city's mobility priority, the city's goal for improved water quality, achieving fishable and swimmable waterways, rivers, and streams, and providing access for all Denver residents to new and existing parks, open space, pedestrian, and bicycle trails and mountain parks, as well as addressing social justice needs and enhancing environmental education opportunities. I urge the Denver City Council to place the funding proposal on the November 6, 2018 ballot to increase the sales and use tax by 0.25% for parks and related needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Kate Fritz.
My name is Kate Fritz. I am a Denver resident of District 8. I am the co-chair of the Denver
Could you pull the
Mountain...
microphone down?
I'm sorry. I'm short. I'm the co-chair of the Denver Mountain Parks Foundation. First off, I'd like to thank Council for bringing this matter to the voters. It is a tremendously important step, I think, forward to protect a cultural resource within the city that is unique and special and provides an amazing opportunity for its residents. I would like to also thank you very much for specifically including the Denver Mountain Parks, which are 14,000 acres of opportunity that I think is unique to any city in the country. We are special, and our park system is special because we have these parks, and it makes us different, and they are important. What is unfortunate is that all too often access to open space for so many people is restricted to their ability to afford to get out of the city. What this bill does, it gives the voters in Denver the opportunity to say, no, we want to have these opportunities within the city and the close-in mountains. It says we want this access to be available for everyone who lives here, not simply the people who have access to cars and can get on I-70 and go to the mountains. It says we will invest in the infrastructure of this city because it is important for kids and for people who can't afford to do that, to be able to have parks that aren't broken, that aren't full of needles, and that aren't trashed. To have shelters and historic structures in the mountain parks that link Denver's present and its future to its past, that give an opportunity to the citizens to see and understand why Denver is unique, why it is special. What this bill does is that it lets the voters in Denver step up and say, this is important to us. And it's important not just if you have privilege, it's important to everyone because it should be a level playing field to have an outdoor opportunity. It should be a level playing field to be able to go to the mountains and have access to open space and hiking and fishing and mountain biking or just standing in a stand of pine trees or aspen trees and understanding that when you do, your heart rate drops. And when you do, you understand the beauty and you can go back to your life. That is why this is important. That is why I thank you very much for your support and referring this to the voters so that they can make this decision to invest in their city, both the parks within it and the parks outside of it. So thank you very much. Congratulations on your election. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I believe our last speaker is no longer here, but is Frank Rose here? Looks like not. All right, that concludes our speakers. Are there questions from members of